And welcome back to the pod, the Friday edition. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the best players at their respective positions in the NFL. I understand there is offense, defense, and special teams to the game of football, okay? But nobody knows anyone on special teams and nobody cares about defense. So, with all that said, I think we should just take this and see where it goes. I think we'll start at the most prized position, the quarterback position. And with that, today we have Jack's breakdown of his top 5 quarterbacks. What do you got for me today, Jack?
All right, well, we're going to start with number one, and I think everyone knows who the number one quarterback in the NFL is, and it has to be Patrick Mahomes. He's been so consistent over the past 3 seasons. He has great numbers. He did get hurt in the Cleveland game, but in the playoffs, he has one loss, and that came in overtime against the Patriots 2018. The guy consistently completes a high percentage of his passes. He throws very good balls, and I almost never see him make a mistake, so I have to put Mahomes at number one. Definitely put Rodgers at number 2, 48 touchdowns this past season. He has elite numbers. He just tends to not get it done in the playoffs. Number 3, I'll put Brady. He had 40 touchdowns. At his age, it's remarkable what he's doing. I mean, taking his team 3 straight road games, wins in all 3 games on the road, throwing touch passes in the playoffs. He hasn't made any mistakes. And it's typical Tom Brady in the playoffs. So I'll put him at number 3. Number 4, I think you have to put Deshaun Watson in there, considering all the talent that he has. He took a bad Houston Texan team and made them look much better this year than they were. I don't know what they were thinking, traded Hopkins away from him. But Watson, even with little talent around him, he just consistently makes plays. And then I think at number 5, you would probably have to go with Russell Wilson, considering his offensive line is one of the worst ones in the league. And he still consistently makes plays, although when he was under pressure this year, he had a lot of trouble. But I would still put him at number 5, considering his team literally won their division despite the struggles of their offense late in the season. Obviously, it ended up hurting them against the Rams, but I still think Wilson is worthy of that 5 spot for quarterbacks. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think for that soliloquy, what do you think, Dante?
I got the same list as him, except I have Wilson at number 4 and Watson number 5, just because Wilson's a proven winner. He's won a Super Bowl, so I have him over Watson.
I mean, yeah, I think all of our lists are pretty even on that front. But, there's a couple of quarterbacks that I think you could argue are in that top 5 that we haven't mentioned. And Lamar Jackson comes to mind. I mean, this guy won an MVP last year. Wilson, Watson, they've never won MVPs, So you could argue that maybe that puts him above them in terms of career, especially a guy like Watson who's never even done much besides win a playoff game against the Buffalo Bills. And then Josh Allen, who had a really good season this year. He's, I think, teetering on the edge. I don't think he's there yet. If he does it another year, maybe he gets himself in the conversation. But, those are a couple of guys that I think you could argue there's a little bit of leeway either way. You could see it.
I mean, Josh Allen had 40 total touchdowns, I believe, with his rushing touchdowns and his passing touchdowns this year. He made some very, very good plays late in the season for Buffalo, clinched them a division title. There was a blowout of the Broncos where he was absolutely lights out. And even in the playoffs, he had some very good numbers up until the Kansas City game. So I'll give Josh Allen some credit. I just think he needs another year just to prove that he deserves to consistently be in that top 5 because, as Dante said, Wilson has won a Super Bowl. And I guess I'm with you in some way, Jason, with Watson, considering the team around him kind of stunk this year. There's no other way to describe it, but he still consistently makes plays. I know he's only won the 1 playoff game, but he was down 16-0 and still led his team back. So
but here's the thing.
He has talent.
When you're ranking these quarterbacks, are you looking at their entire careers and that's what you're basing it off of? Because if that's the case, Brady's got to be number 1. Because the way you put it, you put Brady at number 3 in your rankings, but I would say he was not even close to the 3rd best quarterback in the regular season, at least this year. I don't even think he craps the top 5.
If we're talking about playoffs too now, though.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to include everything. If you want to include everything.
When I make the list, I'm including recent body of work. Brady was just in the Super Bowl, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2018.
He's still good this year. In the playoffs, he's been really well. So I'm including this year's playoffs, the last couple of years. I'm not including 5 years ago.
And how much of this includes what they're going to potentially do next year?
Next year? I mean, I think all those quarterbacks are going to be good next year. I mean, Brady might fall off the most out of all of them, but the way he's throwing, I don't think he's going to fall off dramatically.
Well, you're looking at it. You got a guy in Tom Brady who's going to be 44 years old, and then you got a guy in Lamar Jackson who doesn't crack the list. Dude's like 23 years old, going on 24, and it's going to be, probably in the playoffs again next year. So you got to think long term. Lamar Jackson's the better bet. I mean, he's going to have a longer career from this point.
It also depends on if Watson will be on another team. We'll have to see what happens this offseason, but Watson with the Texans had some pretty good numbers. But if he's on a team that has even more talent around him than he has before, I think he can hang in that top 5. But Wilson it impresses me most, or what impressed me most this season was the way that he continued to make plays despite his offensive line struggles. And, he has DK Metcalf and Lockett. So those two guys are playmakers, and he doesn't really have much at the tight end position. So it's just incredible some of the things that you see him do on a game-to-game basis.
All right, going back to what Jason was saying, I'd rather have Tom Brady going to next season than Lamar Jackson. That's what you're saying.
Really?
Basing on next year.
And if you want to base it on that, then you got to ask yourselves, why is Aaron Rodgers ahead of Tom Brady on your list then? If that's the case, if that's what you're basing it off of. Because Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers is at home. I thought he was a choker. So how is he ahead of Tom Brady on your rankings then?
He's not. No.
You said your list was exactly the same as Jack's, except you flipped Watson and Wilson.
I messed up there, okay? I done messed up.
Now you're completely flipping the script here. Oh, that's sus.
All right. Well, then the reason I put Rodgers ahead of Brady, and hear me out. I know Brady was very, very good in the playoffs, but if you look at the regular season numbers, Brady wasn't nearly as.
So now it's regular season, but a second ago it was totality, and now it's just regular season. Yeah, I got two sus people in this chat right here.
Jason, you can look at both. You don't have to just look. You don't have to.
Okay, Jack. When you're talking about whole body of work, I mean. Yeah. Tom Brady's probably going to take a drop off next season. Aaron Rodgers is still probably going to be the same. So going into next season, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the better quarterback. In the playoffs, I still would take Brady over Rodgers, but
look. If you want to know my list, it's based on recency bias combined with what I see going forward.
And recency bias.
Last couple of years,
Josh Allen's one of the worst QBs in the league after last week.
Recency bias. I'm not that recent. I'm talking 2 to 3 years. You gotta understand that. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes is number 1. I mean, he's unquestioned number 2. And number 2 has got to be Rodgers going forward because I see him having 4 or 5 more good years compared to Brady. I don't see it. Then
you don't see Brady being good next year?
Look, Brady's number 5.
I think he'll fall off a bit, but I still think he'll be really good.
Brady's number 5 on my list because of that. I think he's got one more good year, but I think you got to put Watson and then Wilson ahead of him because they still got 4 or 5 years. So Watson's probably got another decade of being a Pro Bowl every
4 or 5 years. We're talking about top 5 now.
Well, that's not what you guys were saying when you built the list because you completely flip-flopped.
Okay, but if you look at the body,
talking about next year and the last couple of years and this year.
Well, I want to know what
10 years from now. 10 years from now, you'd have to rank Watson number 1 because Brady and Rodgers won't even be in the list.
What about Mahomes then?
Mahomes will still be around.
Forgot
he's
got
a 10-year contract
number 2.
in the first place. He's got 10 years on
How's
that
Trevor
contract.
Lawrence at number 2?
Trevor Lawrence hasn't even played games yet. Relax.
You're basing it on
do you have Trevor Lawrence number 6 on your list, Chase?
He might be cracking it next year. Josh Allen's in trouble. And yes,
sure.
if you're wondering, Josh Allen's number 6 on my list right now. He's just outside the top 5. Now that could change next year. He could be number 1. Or he could be number 15.
1? You think he's gonna be better than Mahomes?
You never know.
Year?
What if Mahomes breaks a leg or something? I don't know.
He still has to be number 1. He gets into the season. He's still the best QB.
Allen could have a 60-60 season, like Winston did a few weeks.
60-60.
Yeah, he might drop to like number 25, right where Daniel Jones is. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about another. There is more than quarterbacks in the NFL. I think there's a wide receiver. I think those are things, right?
Did you ever tell us your list, Jason?
Yeah, I did.
Huh.
If you go back 3 minutes earlier, folks, you'll hear it. But in the meantime, the wide receivers used to be. I know there's a picture of Odell on the screen. I mean, is Odell really still a top 5 receiver? We could probably have a whole pod just on that. But I mean,
I
really
think if he's good next season, I'd consider putting him in my top 5. But currently, no.
But what is in your top 5, Johnson? I really want to know here.
Top 5. Probably I'd have Hopkins at number 1 because he's just incredible. Number 2, probably be Adams.
Oh, that guy from Green Bay? He's all right, he's not bad.
Yeah, he dropped one pass last week, but he did pretty good.
It's that recency bias kicking in.
Number 3, I probably have Tyreek Hill, just because sure they coasted a bit during the regular season, but these playoffs he's just been phenomenal.
The speed, man, the speed of Tyreek Hill, the speed.
And then 4, you have to put Diggs in there. Led the league in receptions and passing yards, or receiving yards. Sorry.
Receiving yards, yeah.
And then number 5, I have a tie between Julio and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, I know he's been injured this year, hasn't played that well, but last year,
so it's the top 6.
Broke a record, and they're tied.
Well, there's no ties in sports. Tie goes to the runner. Tie goes to the runner. Julio, I don't think he's going to win in a race with Michael Thomas.
I put Michael Thomas over Julio.
So Michael Thomas
I have him tied for number 5.
You ever seen Michael Thomas run a quick slant? He's elite in that regard.
Yeah, he runs a quick slant. Receivers, guaranteed every time.
Yeah, but Julio, you throw him that long bomb in Madden, aggressive catch every time.
All right, but that's like 2017 Julio. You got to talk about 2021 Julio, looking into next year, this year.
He only played 9 games, still had 780 yards.
I don't even know if he was the best receiver on his team this year. I mean, he had Calvin Ridley on his team. That guy is legit.
But Julio only played half the game, still at 780 yards. That's impressive.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's Matt Ryan on his team. Dude throws nothing but long balls all game.
I'm just saying. Don't be surprised if Julio has a great season next season.
At 50 years old.
And also, DeAndre Hopkins, 60? When he got traded, I mean, if you I would agree with you putting DeAndre Hopkins at number 1. When he's on Arizona, I mean, he's got Kyler Murray throwing him the ball. Kyler Murray's not the greatest passer, but I think one play this year solely puts DeAndre Hopkins at number 1. And you guys should know what play I'm talking about.
What, the Hail Murray?
Of course. I mean, 3 defenders in the guy's face, and he still makes the catch over all of them, just based on his athleticism to take that ball away from 3 defenders. I mean, it was the greatest catch of the whole season, pretty much, by a wide receiver. And Hopkins, he destroyed teams, had over 100 receiving yards in a bunch of the games, and even though they didn't make the playoffs, he was pretty much the most consistent receiver throughout the season.
I mean, look, we get it. I think Adams, Hopkins, 1-2. Pretty undistinguished. I mean, either one of those guys, you want pick them, put them on any franchise right now. I don't think anyone's going to say no to that over who they got currently. But it gets pretty interesting after that in the 3 to 5 range, Jack. I was wondering, what do you got for there?
I mean, if you go 1 and 2 as Hopkins and Adams, I think I agree with Dante. You got to go Tyreek Hill at number 3, just based on his speed. No cornerback can seem to keep up with him, so he always catches those deep balls. And you saw that play against Buffalo where he ran a route and ended up basically outrunning their whole defense. It was incredible. Yeah. And I think if you're going to look at 4 and 5, honestly, I would be with Dante. You still have to put Michael Thomas in the top 5, despite his struggles with injury this year and lack of receptions in the postseason game. He's still been one of the most consistent receivers, and he had the record for receptions in the season. So I think he deserves to be there. And then at number 5, I don't know if I'd put Julio there. I might actually put DK Metcalf at number 5, considering his
most drops in the NFL. I mean, he's got that.
DK got locked up.
Well, maybe he got locked up with and had some drops, but he's still an elite wide receiver. I mean, can you guys argue with me there? Guy's good. He's really good. He has over 100 receiving yards in a lot of the games, and he's the reason the Seahawks offense
he mosses you in Madden.
I don't know. That might be part of it, but he's still a very good receiver on the Seahawks.
I'm going to do one better for you here. I think Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are both top 5 because I think Kelce's so good that you got to count him as a receiver. I know he's a tight end, but if we did a tight ends ranking, I mean, he'd be number 1 unquestioned. I think he's such an impact. He's literally one of the best receivers in the league at tight end. That's how big an impact he brings to the game, and he blocks. I honestly think
what do you have? 13 receptions in the game against Buffalo?
His impact, honestly, I think he's 3 or 4 of all the wide receivers, just based on his impact from a tight end position. He should be paid a top receiver.
Probably 5.
I think you got to put him up there. And Tyreek Hill,
I think Diggs is over him, though. Hill and Diggs would be over him.
I mean, I'm just thinking right now, if I had to start a franchise, I think I would take Kelce over Diggs right now. Because
I might take Kelce solely on the fact that he can block and he can catch. Most tight ends can only do one or the other. So.
He helps you in the run game. He's clear, unquestioned leader, heart of that team, and he catches everything. comes his way.
Yeah, I would take him over Diggs too, just because it's easier to find a receiver than it is a good tight end.
And Diggs is a nice guy, but I mean, remember last year in that Vikings playoff game, he's complaining about not getting the ball. Like, dude, it's a playoff game, man. Like, you're never going to see that.
He got traded because apparently he didn't like playing with his quarterback.
Yeah,
so
he's one of those guys that forced his way out.
So
yeah, I mean, a lot of receivers are. But that's just another reason I would take Kelce, because I think he can build a team around that guy.
Something else I'll say about Travis Kelce is his leadership is just unmatched on the field. You always see him talking to other players, and you always see him coaching them up.
And
a lot of receivers aren't going to do that.
He rivals the Gronk spike. He's got a pretty good spike. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's pretty good.
He literally, his job is literally in the playoffs to catch touchdowns.
If they weren't in the Super Bowl, that'd be kind of interesting to have a spike off the halftime show.
Imagine that being a Pro Bowl feature, a spike off to see who's better at it. That'd be interesting.
They had kick-tac-toe a couple years ago where they set up like a tic-tac-toe board on the field goal and the uprights, and they had the kickers kick the spots. So
who won? Justin Tucker?
I have no idea.
I wouldn't be surprised. Justin Tucker, most consistent kicker in the league.
So let's talk about our top 5 kickers this week.
Oh, boy.
Jack's coming in at like number 1 here, but other than that, I don't know.
What about Graham Gano, baby, the GOAT?
I don't know about that. How about we do a position people actually care about, okay?
Punters. Okay.
Before we get to the punters, Riley Dixon, I'm looking at you. Before we get to the punters, let's talk about the running backs. Man, like those guys, I get they have 3-year careers, but over the past 3 years, before all these guys retire, what have you seen, Jack, that makes you think that Derrick Henry's not the best running back in the NFL?
Okay, well, if there's anything that's going to make me think Derrick Henry is not the number 1 running back, it would be that Baltimore playoff game. Man had under 50 yards rushing in a playoff game. How does that even possible for a top 10 running back?
-1 yards rushing.
Okay, but we're talking about the first game of the season when that happened, before he even got injured. So that's totally different.
-yards of the game.
Jack, Derrick Henry's not your number 1?
I still think Derrick Henry is in the top 5.
Who are you putting above?
Number 1?
Okay, well, if you're going to think about number 1 running back, I would put Aaron Jones at number 1. Call me crazy.
The guy who fumbled twice?
You're talking about postseason failures, and you're talking about the man who fumbled twice.
You can disagree with me, but I think Aaron Jones is just, in terms of talent level, he's up there with the best running backs in the league, and I would put him at number 1.
Well,
Call me crazy.
I think you're going to have to put Nick Chubb up there above Aaron Jones. Nick Chubb, great in the screen pass game, one of the best dynamic runners in the NFL.
I don't even have Jones in my top 5. That's crazy, Jack.
I mean, you don't have to view it the same way I do. That's why we agree to disagree here. But Aaron Jones, in terms of his productivity with the Packers, he's
you're
been
starting
so
a franchise tomorrow. You can take Derrick Henry or Aaron Jones, and you're taking Aaron Jones?
I'll take Aaron Jones this time around.
That's wild to me.
But why? What? In what way is he better than Derrick Henry?
Aaron Jones, they both are very fast running backs, but I think Aaron Jones is a little bit more elite in the passing game than Derrick Henry is.
I mean, that's understandable. But if we're going to say that, Saquon Barkley's the number 1 running back in the league.
Okay, but Saquon's always injured.
McCaffrey's better than Aaron Jones in the receiving game.
You can't put Saquon in this conversation, Jason. He's injured too much. I'm sorry.
We're talking about the past couple of years here. I mean, just look what he's done when he's on the field. 2,000-yard seasons.
Okay, well, 2,000-yard seasons, yes. But McCaffrey missed a lot of time this year, too, unfortunately. But he's still in the top
1 year,
5.
Though.
True.
Same
That's
thing for
why you can't look too much into 1 year. I mean, there are a lot of good running backs out there, don't get me wrong. I just like Aaron Jones better in the receiving game than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is more of a bowling ball running back than he is somebody who's going to have that receiving ability. And obviously, Derrick Henry makes people miss, but so does Aaron Jones in his own way.
What's easier, to catch a tennis ball or a bowling ball?
I mean, it's harder to tackle a bowling ball like Derrick Henry, don't get me wrong. But then again, Aaron Jones is so elusive.
All right. Would you rather chase a tennis ball or a bowling ball down the street?
Probably a bowling ball because it's not as fast, but still.
What happens when you try and grab it and it's slippery and then you fall on your face? And then next thing you know,
that's all you say about it.
You're getting stiff-armed like Josh Norman. And you want to tell me you're going to take Aaron Jones?
Stiff-arm Josh Norman. Yes, I'll still take Aaron Jones.
Even when you're
to the bank.
Even when you're getting stiff-armed 6 yards in the air and thrown into the first row.
Sure. Yes.
You're like that Old Spice commercial where Derrick Henry's just sprinting down the side. Like there's like 3 guys grabbing his waist.
You want to talk about something crazy? Dante putting Zeke in his top 5. I was surprised by that. Why, Dante? Why did you put Zeke there?
I mean, his offensive line's been washed all season. Dak got injured in the beginning of the season. The season's like a wash, so he's not going to put his all
he's
this
basing
season.
it off of last year, not just this year, Jack. Unlike your Saquon.
Yeah, next year I could definitely see Zeke bouncing back and being a top 5.
But what about Saquon?
This year, Saquon, yeah, but Zeke's been in the playoffs. He's been doing good in the playoffs. Feed Zeke. You don't hear feed Saquon.
They're 2 playoff victories in 20 years. They've been doing good.
Hey, Zeke's a baller. I'm just saying, he's top 5. Next season, he's going to bounce back. Dak's going to be back. The Lions going to be back.
All right, but what about? I was surprised you didn't put your guy Alvin Kamara up there at number 1.
Alvin Kamara? He's not my guy. I just had him met in one league.
I mean, you could put Alvin Kamara in the top 5. A
lot of his stats got padded by that one game, though. I mean, obviously it was an amazing game, but
it's a record-breaking game, 6 touchdowns.
He did have 10 other touchdowns this season. I'm pretty sure, though.
Yeah, but I don't think he's top 5.
Fantasy-wise, awesome. Yeah, fantasy-wise, he wasn't. And there's a guy none of you guys have mentioned who was on my fantasy team who was an absolute beast the entire season. Can anybody guess?
Kenyon Drake.
He was, but he was not a beast the entire season. He had his moments. The guy I'm thinking about plays for the same team that Trevor Lawrence is about to play for, and that's right, James Robinson. To me, this guy is in the top 5. He was so consistent. He came out of nowhere. Dude was working at Walmart a year ago, but now he's a top 5 NFL running back. If that doesn't tell you that dreams can come true, then I don't know what does.
So yours is based off narrative.
But look at his stats. Fantasy points, I think he was the number 3 running back in fantasy this year. Running back stats are based on yards per carry, and touchdowns scored. This guy was an absolute beast the entire season. It was a consistent 20 fantasy points a week for me all year. Very few running backs could do that. Derrick Henry did that, and I think Nick Chubb did that when he was healthy.
He also had over 1,000 rushing yards on a 1-15 football.
That's true. They were the worst team in the league. So he was the best player on the worst team in the league.
And you're right, he came out of nowhere. So I guess you could put him maybe in your top 5. I think it's a stretch.
Because I think next year he's going to be great again. I mean, you're going to bolster that offensive line. You're going to have Trevor Lawrence, so you can't stuff the box. Like they had 9-man boxes all year. Because who was their quarterback? Can anybody tell me who their quarterback was this year?
There was this guy named Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, but he didn't start all the games. I think they had Blaine Gabbert starting or something. I don't even know.
No, it was like Jake Melton or something like that. I forget his name.
TJ Yeldon, something like that.
No, TJ Yeldon is the Bills running back. Don't get me started on that. Oh, geez. No, nobody can name the Jaguars starting quarterbacks. They had like 4 different ones this year. So
who knows? But yeah,
they're still better than Dan Jones, though. I'm telling you that.
Whoa, now.
Listen,
Jones.
We're not going into
a year from now. When it's Mahomes and Jones in the top 2, you're going to take that bag.
Hey, I'll eat my words that happens, but it ain't going to happen.
If we did a list of the worst 5 quarterbacks in the league, I don't think he cracks it because
he's 26th, so there's like 6 guys worse than him.
Okay, then maybe he cracks.
He's not even good at being bad.
Yeah, he's just bleh. You look at Jones and you just think, that's all you can think of.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he has potential for next season, but we'll see what happens. Also, we're talking about running backs. I think someone who's underrated.
Did you put Lamar Jackson in there?
No, Lamar Jackson seems like he plays running back.
Which one? The guy that plays for the Jets? The guy that plays for the Jets? Or are you talking about that guy in the Ravens?
That one guy in the Ravens.
Not the guy in the Jets that gave up that last-second touchdown? Remember that Raider game?
Not him. We're not talking about the blitz that Greg Williams decided to call.
What about that guy that got burnt on the Packers this last week? We talk about him all day.
So you mean the guy who gave up 3 touchdowns on his own?
Man's a king.
King of giving up touchdowns, that is.
Dang.
But I was going to mention Cam Akers, man. This guy's been underrated this year.
But you can't give any
over 700 rushing yards.
You're talking about a triple running back system on the Rams. I mean, you can't say that that's a top 5 running back when they split the carries. It's
let's hear your list, Jay.
Okay,
what's the official list here?
We also haven't even talked about Dalvin Cook, so you have to put Dalvin Cook.
Well, we were waiting for your list.
Yeah, say your list.
Okay, so here's my list. I'm going to put Aaron Jones at number 1.
All right, moving on.
Dalvin Cook at number 2.
Okay, so my
number
list
3 would be Derrick Henry. Number 4 would be Nick Chubb.
Wait, who's
number
2?
5. Number 2 would be Dalvin Cook. Number 3 would be Derrick Henry.
Best running back.
Wow. He clearly doesn't care about past years. It's all about like this year.
Yeah, Jack, just don't go driving out later. You're clearly drunk. You won't pass the test.
Oh, sure. No, I'm just
You are
I
drunk
have an
right
opinion
now.
on running backs that's different from your guys. You know, I think some running backs are more talented than you guys are giving them credit
Well,
for.
running backs, it's a little different than quarterbacks. It's like they have a short window to be great, right? So if you had to build a Super Bowl team tomorrow, a team that's going to compete for a Super Bowl, what's the number one running back you're going to take? Who is?
I mean, I think right now it would
For
be
1
Dalvin
year.
Cook.
For 1 year, right?
Dalvin
To
Cook.
You just said Aaron Jones earlier. Now
Okay,
it's Dalvin Cook.
Aaron Jones at number 1, but I'll take Dalvin Cook to run the franchise.
So that means you have Dalvin Cook at number 1.
I put Dalvin Cook at number 2. You could use either of those guys.
But you were just saying earlier you'd rather have Aaron Jones than any other
I
running
didn't
back.
compare Aaron Jones to Dalvin Cook.
Is this like
I
those
compared
taco
him to
commercials
Derrick
where they're
Henry.
like hard shell or soft shell and they say, why not both? Because that's the vibe I'm getting right now.
I guess so, but still, you could start a franchise by any of these top 5 players. So what's your
We're
point?
saying which one would you rather have, though. It's about, obviously, they're top 5.
Okay, well, if you're going to talk about starting a franchise, then I'll take Dalvin Cook. But if
you
you're
said
talking
Aaron
about
Jones earlier. Now
from
you're
this
talking about
past
Dalvin
year,
Cook.
you're talking about Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is consistent. So are these other running backs, but Aaron Jones he makes so many plays. I think
They
he's
all
a number
do.
1 running back.
But I just don't get your Aaron Jones obsession.
This year was definitely a down year compared to last year. I mean, he was hurt for like several weeks this year. Dalvin Cook tore up the league for like the entire season. There was 1 week where he had like 200 running yards. It was insane.
Now, if we're going to talk about who's going to run it next year, obviously you have to have Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and maybe Saquon and Zeke in the top 5 next year if they're going to be good. But if you're basing it off this year, you can't talk about Zeke because of all his fumbles, and Saquon was injured.
Well, you already said we were talking about recency this year, next year.
Well, I think,
and based on recent statistics, we haven't even talked about the fact that Gus Edwards had over 1,000 yards for the Ravens.
All right, but that was
Dude's
1 year.
good.
Are you taking him next year?
I don't know. It depends on how the Ravens are.
Hey, Jack, sorry for cutting you off. Finish your list, though. I think you're at number 4. Yeah, just do a quick recap.
Okay, so we had number 1, Aaron Jones. Number 2, Dalvin Cook. Number 3, Derrick Henry. I'm trying to think of a number 4 and number 5. I'm having a tough time deciding, but I think I'd take McCaffrey at number 4. And then I'd probably, if we're basing it on the past few years, I'd take Saquon at number 5. I can't take Saquon off that list.
But no James Robinson? That's crazy.
No James Robinson. He's had 1 good year
I
so
get
far.
it's 1 good year, but Dalvin Cook had 1 good year. Now we're crowning him the king.
Okay, Dalvin Cook has had more than 1 good season, Jason.
Okay, but he was basically an MVP candidate this season.
Right, he was the reason the Vikings offense was that good, but so was Jefferson in terms of rookie receivers.
Yeah, him and Thielen holding it down. Their offense wasn't bad. Yeah. Their defense sold.
I think Jefferson is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. We'll see.
You trying to tell me Andrew Thomas ain't going to get that?
Let's not talk Andrew Thomas. We're not talking about top 5 linemen. Be here all day.
Eric Flowers fan club.
Yes, Eric Flowers, baby. Top number 1 freaking tackle ever to play football.
Well,
yeah, right.
I footballed myself out for today. You guys got anything else you want to add to this?
Wait to hear your list, Jason. I have to say mine.
Tell us your running back list.
Oh, my God. I got to get my list, too?
Yeah, you do.
All right. Derrick Henry, number 1, because I have, eyes. Okay. Dalvin Cook's number 2. Okay. You with me so far? Okay.
Yeah.
You got Kamara at number 3. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We still hanging in there. Still hanging in there. I got Saquon at number 4 because I'm a homer.
Nice.
James Robinson's at number 5 because I told you don't sleep on that man. And that's my list.
Oh, nice list. My list is Henry number 1, obviously. I don't think that's even a debate. I think Jack is drunk, personally. But, number 2, Nick Chubb. Because he's a beast.
I mean, yeah, but the only reason I didn't put Chubb up there is because they also have Kareem Hunt, and they're kind of a dual running back system.
Running back by
Chubb would have even more yards if Hunt was on the team.
Well, that's the thing. I think he'd be like top 3 if it wasn't for that.
I mean, you can't hold that against him because the team.
I kind of do. I hold that against Cam Akers on the Rams because the team uses 3 running backs.
Yeah, but Nick Chubb is like the definitive number 1 guy.
Is he though?
And you know who we forgot to mention who had an elite rookie year that maybe isn't in the top 5 yet, but probably will be in the future is Jonathan Taylor from the Colts.
And look out for Josh Jacobs on the Raiders. That guy is pretty good too.
Yes. And actually, you know who came on late in the year was David Montgomery for the Bears.
And the Wayne train. Wayne Gallman, #1 next year. You would book it.
He ain't going to start. So what's your point?
All right. Well, Dante's using that logic, so why can't I?
Fair enough.
Taylor Heineke, top 10 QB next year. I'm just saying.
That's how we're going to end on Taylor Heineke. He's the GOAT talk.
Okay, so 3 is Dalvin Cook, 4 McCaffrey, 5 Zeke. Honorable mention, Lamar Jackson, just because his running is so impactful. That's what that team does. I think you just got to give him a shout out here.
Second honorable mention, Daniel Jones, because he tripped over himself.
But Daniel Jones ran the fastest in the league this year.
That's his career highlight.
That's a wild stat.
Down.
On that play, he ran faster than Tyreek Hill's ever ran in his entire career. It's kind of crazy to think about.
And yet he still fell down on
No wonder he tripped. Gravity can't keep up with that man. He's so fast.
Play he had against the Eagles was nice.
That one play before we won the game.
Anyway, fast people on the Eagles. How about Deshaun Jackson against the Giants?
Whoa, now. Better end this pod before we start getting toxic.
Yeah.
Jack remembers that.
We better let the Eagles-Giants talk come another day.
All right, before Jack and Dante brawl it out, I think it's about time to wrap this thing up here. You guys got any final thoughts on guys that are playing this year and not 10 years ago?
No, I think I'm all done.
I'm good.
All right, with that said, we'll be back Monday, weather permitting. Have a good one.
Thanks for joining.